Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Caregiver and Spoonie podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Banderas. Just a quick reminder, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes of the podcast. And once again, thank you for all the emails that we've been receiving. We're so grateful and thankful for that. Thank you for all the stories that you guys are sharing. I'm going to start sharing some on the actual podcast page on Facebook. And also thank you for all your feedback. We're actually improving the podcast every day to make sure that you guys are enjoying it. And thank you for giving me your time. So let's get into today's episode, shall we? So on today's episode, I wanted to talk about accepting or embracing the change. Because when you're a spoonie or a caregiver or whatever happens in your life, we have to accept those type of changes. Like, for example, in this case, let's say, in my case, when I was diagnosed with PTSD and everything, I had to accept it. I literally embraced it. Like, I was like, okay, I have PTSD. I do have PTSD. This is what's happening. How can I get better? Or, for example, with my wife, she has fibromyalgia and everything like that, but she still hasn't accepted, and we talked about this the other day, she still hasn't accepted that she can do the same things as before. So obviously she still has the old habits of doing everything that she was doing before she got sick. So obviously that hurts her in the long run. And I know a lot of people that do the same thing. That's why I wanted to talk about this, because when you don't accept the changes that are happening right now in your life, either because you became a spoonie or a caregiver or whatever is happening in your life, then pretty much you're fighting it. You're fighting everything. Like when you have a flare or whatever, when you feel ill because you're facing something, or when everything pretty much changes in your life and you fight it, like literally you're fighting against your life. Literally. You're fighting against your life. That's how it felt for me before I was diagnosed with PTSD, because I knew something was wrong. But that's the way that I was raised. So I didn't want to say oh, the way that I was raised was bad. So once I was diagnosed that I had PTSD, I was like, okay, so I accept this. Now, what do I need to do to get better? And that gave me the answers to get better. In this case, like go to therapy, pretty much work on myself, find out more about myself, things like that. And the same thing will happen to you if you're a spoonie. Like if you're facing fibromyalgia, chronic pain, or anything, sometimes we have to dig in on our past to see why we have that pain. Or you don't even have to dig in the past. You just have to be aware enough on your body as to why the pain, or what's causing the pain. Sorry, that's what I wanted to say. What's causing the pain? But if you don't accept that you're in pain, if you don't accept or embrace the change that you have, a diagnosis, then how are you going to become aware of your own symptoms? So that's why I wanted to talk about this, because like I said, I know a lot of people that are going through this. They're fighting pretty much all of the changes. They're fighting every diagnosis. They're like, no, I'm better. I'm still good. I still can do this. Even though they can walk for miles, they still try to walk the miles. Instead of just walking a few steps to see how much they can do, they try to still walk miles. And I'm not talking about my wife. But that's what they do. So when you do that, like I mentioned, you're fighting your life, literally. You're fighting your life. And when you fight your life, you're never going to win. You're actually just going to feel worse about yourself, because it's like you're going to get into that depressive state where it's like, oh my gosh, this is my life. This is hell. And you're not going to be able to enjoy it. That's the thing. That's why a lot of people don't enjoy it, because once you embrace it or accept it and you find a way to get better, like in my case, let's say I like I mentioned, in my case, I said like, okay, this is the problem. How can I get better? What do I need to do to get better? If you don't embrace it and you don't find the solution, like you don't find exactly what's causing the symptoms, what's causing the problem, because a lot of the times with fibromyalgia, through research, I have found that, or chronic pain, it could be caused due to trauma. And not just physical trauma, but emotional trauma as well. It could be from something that was said a long, long time ago, like kind of like the story of the baby bottle that I mentioned before. Like, it could be from a long time ago, but the problem is that the way that we perceive or the way that we react to things, the way that we feel things, sometimes is stored in our body in certain ways that it could cause pain, it could cause inflammation, things like that. And this is so true. I mean, this is why a lot of people don't believe in Eastern medicine, because it sounds very woo-woo, but I've done the research. I'm not an expert in it, but by doing the research and doing and trying what I have found, I have noticed a change in myself. And I have also noticed a change in my wife. When she decides to try something, I can see the change. So I'm not just talking because I want to talk about this. No, it's because I know a little bit about it. I'm learning more about it. And all I can tell you is that all you need to do is try. Like, if you accept the change and you say, like, okay, I have chronic pain. What do I need to do to find out what's causing the pain? Well, when you ask yourself that question, like I have mentioned before, your mind is like Google, literally. Your mind knows everything about you, every single detail, everything about you. So when you ask the right questions, you're gonna get the right answers. So that's why it's important to accept the change or embrace the change, so you can ask yourself the right questions, like, how come I feel like this? How come my arm is hurting? How come I have inflammation? If I eat this food, how come this makes me sick? So you become more aware, not just of the outside, but about yourself. It gives you the opportunity to embrace yourself and learn more about yourself, because when you accept this, whatever you're going through, you're going to be like, okay, at least in my situation, this is how it was. I don't know about you, but at one point you might get to that point as well, when you're going to be like, okay, so this is what's happening. I have this, and this. How come I got this? How come I'm suffering? How come I'm doing this? How come I'm not getting better? You're going to get the right answers, but only you have those answers. That's why one of the things that I have, that's why I wanted to talk about this, because one of the things that I've seen in the doctor's office every time that I take my wife is that a lot of people, and this was us before actually, a lot of people, they don't want to accept the change. They don't want to embrace the change that the illness brought. And they just expect the doctors to figure everything out. Like, we don't do anything. We don't do any research. Like, that's why I like to do all this research about medical issues that my wife has, because it's like I have learned so much. And when I go to tell the doctor, they're like, I never thought about that. So you give them a different perspective. That's why it's so important to accept the change, because you start paying attention to everything that the illness is causing, and the more information you give to your doctor, the better for you in this situation. So in this particular situation, when you're embracing the change, like I said, like, you're going to go through a lot. You're going to have to pretty much find yourself again and say, like, okay, this is the new me. I'm going to start all over again. Instead of walking a mile, I can only do a quarter of a mile. And that is fine. So that's how you start learning what you can take. And that way you can tell the doctor, like, hey, I only walk like 10 feet and I start getting all sweaty, or start getting all winded, or things like that. That's good information for your doctor, depending on what you're having. So that's why it's important to embrace the change. And another thing is, like, especially for caregivers, if you don't embrace the change, and your spoonie is your spouse or your girlfriend or whatever, or your partner, if you don't embrace the change, the relationship is not going to work, unfortunately. I can tell you that, because my relationship, after everything, after my wife got sick, my relationship it was in a rocky road, pretty much. It was very rocky. It wasn't the way that it is right now, because we were not accepting the change. We were not embracing it. Then the diagnosis for me came. I had to embrace that, and then I embraced Katie being sick. And once I did that, we were able to work on our communication. That's why I decided to go into therapy. I decided to go to marriage counseling, and it has helped us a lot. Like our communication is way better than ever. Now with the quarantine, since I had to work from home, it even helped us more because we are able to talk about how we feel about each other, how we feel with each other, how we can help each other better. So we are working together as a very good team. And that's what I want to point out. Like, once you embrace all of the changes that have happened in your life, you're going to be able to accept it. You're going to be able to embrace it and see things from a different perspective. Not from the perspective that you might be at right now, where it's like, I'm not sick. I can still do this. I don't want to disappoint people. It doesn't matter who you disappoint. You're disappointing yourself because you're not taking care of yourself. That's the problem. So you have to take care of yourself. Okay? You have to take care of yourself. You have to embrace this. You have to accept the change so you can realize, like, you know what? I do have fibromyalgia. I do have this. This is what I have right now. How can I get better? What do I need to do to not be in so much pain? Because once you have an autoimmune disease, unfortunately, you're going to have to change a lot of habits. One of the biggest habits, and this is why I recommend this Netflix documentary called Heal, because they explain it a little bit better. The way that we eat right now, everything that we're eating, and I'm going to talk about this in a different episode, but everything that we're eating has so much crap that our bodies are not designed to eat, that it could be causing some of our inflammation or some of the autoimmune diseases that we're seeing. Like, one of the things that I can tell you, and I tried this, and it's freaking true, and it kind of like freaked me out because I was like, wow, I didn't know I was doing this to myself. A long time ago, when I started listening to podcasts and everything, I listened to this doctor saying like how if you eat a lot of sugar or a lot of processed sugar, it can cause inflammation or it can even lead to eczema. And I was like, really? Well, around that time, months before I had suffered from eczema. Like I sometimes eczema, I have eczema flares and they're very bad. So I was like, I'm going to pay attention to that, like I'm like, all right, if that's true, I'm going to pay attention to that. So I got a flare and I'm like, okay, I cut off all my sugar, all the processed sugar. Like literally I went to from a couple hundred grams of sugar or more, which is not good for you, by the way, to 20 grams of sugar. Like I cut it right away, and I saw a dramatic change. Like the eczema went away, my inflammation went away. But then the problem is that the sugar withdrawals came, and it was bad. Like I have heard of sugar withdrawals, and when I researched it, because I was like, I feel so sick. I'm like, what's going on? And I decided to look for sugar withdrawals. They're almost like heroin withdrawals. Like I was sweating, like I was having cold sweats I was shaky. I was like, oh my gosh. No wonder why they call sugar the drug. But then I was like, oh my gosh, this is helping me. And unfortunately, due to stress and because I look for comfort foods, I've been eating crappy again. But now I'm calling myself out by doing this. So I'm going to do better again because I know that it works. So if you're facing something, it doesn't matter what you're facing. You just have to accept it. You just have to embrace it. You have to accept the change. You have to accept the fact that you became a caregiver and that everything has changed. You might not be able to go out every weekend. You might not be able to walk as much. You might not be able to carry everybody else's burden. But that's okay because you're going to have to take care of yourself. That's the main thing right now, taking care of yourself, mentally and physically. It looks like somebody's shooting outside. I don't know if you guys heard that, but there was a big noise. It looks like somebody is either getting towed or something. But anyway, you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself physically and mentally. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. This is all about you. and you only. You the caregiver and you the spoonie, okay? So accept it, enjoy the process, because this is a process. This is this process. It's always going to change. So always accept the change. Always accept this new process. And once you accept it, I can guarantee you this: like, you might be able to find more answers than ever before, because it has happened to me, to my wife. So I'm just talking out of experience in this situation, and that's what I wanted to talk about today on today's episode. Thank you for listening. Thank you for everything, and don't forget to share, like, subscribe. Also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook. And if you know anybody that is having some sort of issue, you can always share this with them, because maybe they might enjoy this, and they might realize that they might need help, or that they can actually accept or embrace whatever changes they're facing in their life. So thank you for everything, and as I always say, if you want to share your stories, you can always send them to me at the caregiver and spoonie at gmail.com, or share them on the Facebook community. And thank you for everything, and I always leave you like this: always take care of yourself. Have a great day.